We also discussed, obviously, our concern around steel and aluminum tariffs and the president's comments earlier this week.
Canada's finance minister joined by Canada's ambassador to the U.S. and all of Canada's premiers today in Washington, D.C., the latest push to try and avert Donald Trump's looming tariffs. They're making the case to U.S. officials that those levies would hurt Americans as well, each premier targeting specific trade partners of his or her own province. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Let's jump right in with Rob Shaw at the BC Legislature tonight. Rob, you've been monitoring the premier's trip today. What's our takeaway from it, or what should it be?
Well, Stacey, did we get the U.S. president to back down on tariffs? No. But there were a few interesting things from this chaotic, wild day at Washington, D.C., which culminated in the premiers ending up at the White House, meeting with Trump's deputy chief of staff. Now, on the one hand, the premiers were aggressively making their case to Republican and Democratic lawmakers about why tariffs are bad for both countries. But on the other hand, at the White House, BC Premier David Eby calling it a listening exercise in a meeting with that deputy chief of staff, James Blair, and the director of personnel for Trump, Sergio Gore. Here's Eby.
So they urged us to take the president at his word on a number of things. That fentanyl on the border is concerned, that Americans have been mistreated by Canada, and that the trade irritant of the surplus is serious. That he is concerned that we are underfunding our military and not meeting our NATO obligations, and that Canada could address these issues by becoming the 51st state. So there were an array of things that they were asking us to take seriously from the president, and some, obviously, which we had to push back on firmly.
Now, some premiers called it a sign of respect that they got to the White House invited for that last-minute meeting today. Though ultimately, it is Trump himself, not his staff, who calls the shots. And as we know, he is unpredictable. Also, the premiers found themselves to be kind of small fish in a big pond today, as most of the discussion in the Capitol was about Donald Trump's phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin in a possible step towards peace in the Ukraine. So the premiers getting together, all 13 of them, may have been a historic moment, but even just briefly getting on the agenda at the White House was significant. Here's Eby again.
It was a very valuable and important set of meetings that we had over the whole day. Members of Congress from both sides, Republican and Democrat, as well as key administration officials. And now I'm just about to head into a meeting with labor movement leaders from the United States to talk about the impact of tariffs on their workers, on Americans, higher costs and threats to employment that come from tariffs. So it has been a productive set of meetings so far.
Just to give you a sense of how kind of chaotic this all was, after Eby and the premiers came out of the White House, they spoke to the media. Something that Eby said caught the attention of the White House and White House official that they met, that deputy chief of staff, going on social media and saying, to be clear, we never agreed that Canada would not become the 51st state. We only agreed to share Premier Eby's comments with the president. So showing just how sensitive this all is. What is next? Well, the premiers came away with this feeling like they need to wait until Trump's Commerce Secretary nominee, Howard Lutnick, is actually appointed to that job, then come back. And Eby said maybe on their next visit to Washington, they might even meet with Trump himself. Whether that happens, Stacey, before the tariffs kick in, though, only Trump knows that for sure. Stacey?